Good evening. As most Kenyans were at home recovering from their Christmas revels, the newly appointed Inspector General was hard at work. And for some politicians, the Christmas break is over and they're back to the drawing board crafting alliances to try and salvage their political careers. This is KTN Prime. I'm Linda. Many thanks for joining us. We begin with road carnage. 4 people have been killed and several others injured following various accidents around the country as Kenyans marked Boxing Day. 3 died in an accident involving a matatu along Kisii-Keroka Highway, while another person was killed along the Nakuru-Naivasha Highway in an accident involving 3 lorries. KTN Sofia Wanuna reports.
The Metro Transport minibus had been ferrying passengers from Nairobi to Kisii, and just as they neared their destination, it is suspected that the driver lost control and overturned as he tried to negotiate a sharp bend. 3 passengers died on the spot at Bobaracho Shopping Center. 17 others were injured and were rushed to various hospitals, including Kisii Level 5 Hospital. The 3 bodies were kept at the hospital's mortuary awaiting identification. Area Base Commander James Ekwanye, who spoke at the scene of the accident, said that the driver of the minibus, which operates in Nairobi, may not have been conversant with the route that has sharp bends between Keroka and Kisii, thus losing control.
When you board any vehicle and you see the manner in which that vehicle is being driven, either at high speed or the driver looking fatigued, bring it to the attention of any police officer around along that particular route. For passengers, avoid boarding vehicles which could be overloaded.
Elsewhere, 1 person died and 3 others were injured in an accident involving 2 lorries and a fuel tanker on Nakuru-Naivasha Road near Delamere Farm. A further 6 people were injured on the same road in another accident involving 2 saloon vehicles. The injured were rushed to Nakuru Provincial General Hospital. These accidents come a day after leaders called on drivers to drive carefully and strictly adhere to the new traffic regulations geared towards curbing road carnage. Sofia Wanuna, KTN.
Residents of Tana River County have been given 7 days to surrender 9 guns and 580 bullets taken from police officers who were murdered on September 10th at Kilelengwani village or face dire consequences. Inspector General of Police David Kimayo has warned that police will move in and execute a forceful disarmament campaign should residents fail to heed the call to surrender arms. Kimayo spoke after a tour of various villages in Tana River County that have seen deadly tribal violence over the past 3 months.
Barely 2 days in office, and the new Inspector General of Police, David Kimayo, was already out on his first assignment, and as expected, Tana Delta was his first stop. Kimayo was accompanied by Internal Security Minister Kato Olemetito earlier in the day, met with officials from the area to get insights on the intercommunal clashes that left over 40 people dead. After meeting the local leaders, the government delegation called for a meeting with both Pokomos and Ormas in attendance.
Mimi nikiwa waziri wa usalama, hiyo mdomo yako itakufanya ukose jina yako kwa hiyo debe. Hiyo ni onyo na ujue, I mean it. Lakini ngoja nitakuhakikishia, kwa sababu itaanza hapa Gariseni.
Kwamba ukikosewa kidogo, unataka ulipisha kisasi. Yule ambaye amelipishwa kisasi, anarudi kulipisha kisasi. Muondoe hizo roho ya kulipisha visasi.
Kimayo asked the 2 communities to identify who amongst them were fueling the clashes and report to the police for action. And when it came to the issue of arms being in the wrong hands, the tough-talking Inspector General of Police did not mince his words, issuing an ultimatum to the warring communities.
Tunataka kuhakikisha kwamba area hii tumereinforce na administration police ile iko RDU tumereinforce katika sehemu hii, na sio Pokoma peke yake au Orma peke yake, sehemu sote iwe cover ili tuone kwamba amani imepatikana. Hiyo tutachukulia maanani haya yote na tutarudi tena kuhakikisha vile nimetaja hapo awali, tusikuje hapa kwa ajili ya sita peke yake. tunataka kukuja hapa tukiingiliana na wananchi. We want our officers to interact and integrate with the members of the public.
It is the tough stance that the police force has yearned for a long time. But for now, it's only a directive. Its implementation once the 7 days elapses will be the real measure of how well the new broom is sweeping. Patrick Amimo, KTN Prime.
In the same breath, administration and regular police officers from Embakasi Division today engaged a group of slum dwellers who are demonstrating against the alleged grabbing of their land. The land in dispute measures about 4 acres. The demonstrators, who were keen to block any new developments on the piece of land, found a contingent of police officers guarding the property. They were tear-gassed and forced to flee. The demonstrators say they were evicted from the land, which they claim to have occupied for the last 22 years, and the Ministry of Lands had issued them an allotment letter in October. In June this year, Langata KPA Nairobi West Self-Help Group, through its chairman John Ochieng and Secretary Lydia Akoth, obtained interim orders from Justice Isaac Lenaola stopping unlawful and illegal demolition of dwellings on the disputed land in Kiangombe slum until a case filed before him is heard and determined. The petitioners had sued companies that own a chain of supermarkets, the City Council of Nairobi and Commissioner of Police against forcible eviction. The private developer has hired workers to erect a perimeter wall around the land, with police keeping vigil.
Tumekuwa tukiishi hapa for the last 22 years. Leo wamekuja wamesingira samba, wanachukua samba na nguvu na AP. Tukitaka samba APs wanatupiga.
Now, ATM card fraud is a problem that until recently was a preserve of the developed world. But over the last 1 month, there has been a sharp increase in incidents of ATM fraud in Kenya. It is suspected that a syndicate is operating in and around Nairobi, skimming card details from unsuspecting Kenyans using ATM machines. And as KTN's Eric Njoka reports, Kenyans are worried even though no bank has come forward to admit that their customers are victims.
ATM machines are popular today because they are a very fast way of obtaining cash without visiting a banking institution. But there are relevant risks involved with their usage. So, are ATMs any safer?
Ever heard of scheming? If you think it involves removing the floaty bits from a hot chocolate, think again. Scheming is actually a form of ATM fraud, and last year the method was so successful fraudsters managed to steal 3 billion shillings from our commercial banks in Kenya. It is a phenomenon that until recently was very uncommon in Kenya. On Christmas Eve, Kenyans woke to the reality of what ATM skimming scam can cause, finding your account balance at zero, biggest victims being those in Nairobi.
There's a lot of fraud happening and we cannot take chances. The bank cannot take chances, and fraudsters have become very knowledgeable. They are way ahead of technology.
The incidents reported to KTN date as far back as beginning of December. Standard Chartered Bank, in a statement sent to KTN, allayed their customers' fears, citing the fact that there is usually increased incidents of fraud during the festive season. They said that the SMS sent out to their customers urging them to change their PIN numbers immediately was just precautionary. So how does the scheming work? From this video, it is evident that with the advancement in technology, the scammers are also developing better ways to collect your personal information stored in ATM cards. They are now able to attach hardware to ATM machines and steal card details and PIN numbers during transactions. The most scary thing is the ease with which criminals can install the device on the cash machines. Within a few minutes, the device is attached to the machine and mimics the look of an ATM's card slot. Once inserted, your card details and PIN number are recorded via hidden camera. The criminals leave the device on the machine, and anybody who accesses the machine thereafter is a potential victim. To avoid falling prey to these fraudsters, always cover the keypad when typing your PIN at the ATM. It's wise to regularly check all your bank accounts to ensure everything is correct and register for SMS alerts.
In ATMs, people have found the loopholes. They are taking advantage of them, yes. So it's just up to the bank to find a way of how to deal with those loopholes, yes.
Those are some of the facts about the scheming scam. So next time you are at an ATM machine, take a few seconds to look out for any suspicious devices, and if you're not convinced, do not transact. Eric Njoka, KTN.
Eric Njoka with a little advice that could go a long way in helping you. Now, Boxing Day is traditionally the day when those who received Christmas gifts get to open them as the season's festivities continue. But residents of Mathara's Section C marked the day under a cloud of uncertainty. A section of the residents whose homes were razed to the ground by a fire that occurred early Christmas Eve spent the day rebuilding their homes. Others have taken refuge with neighbors. KTN's Wilkista Nyabwa reports.
Mathara's Section C is rising from the ashes of Monday's fire. Houses are coming up once more, where homes went up in flames on Christmas Eve. But those rebuilding their houses are few. Many other residents are still trying to salvage what they can where their houses once stood, now a large field where children come to play. Alice Nasaka lived here with her 4 children. 3 of those children have been taken in by neighbors. A 4th is helping her to rebuild the house, but they must wait until the builder completes her neighbor's house before he can get to hers. The fire started just after 9, but was put out shortly afterwards. Residents would be woken up hours later by the sharp smell of petrol.
Kuitana hivi kabla hata dakika 5 ijaisha ndio hiyo moto ikalipuka kwa manyumba sasa.
Many fled with just the clothes on their backs. This making for a miserable Christmas morning as over 600 people found themselves out in the cold.
Mpango wa Christmas iliharibika kabisa sababu unajua sasa usiku ukishtukia moto imeanza kuwaka, hata pesa zenye ulikuwa nazo huwezi chukua sababu moto kila kitu ilichomeka ndani ya nyumba.
Instead, they spent their Christmas here with no gifts or merrymaking. A section of residents found refuge at a local church, while the rest moved from neighbor to neighbor every night, careful not to wear out their welcome. This state of affairs compounded by the fact that residents have been unable to agree on just whom the responsibility of rebuilding falls.
Hata landlords hawaonekani. Sisi wenyewe tunashughulikia sisi wenyewe. Hakuna mwenye ameleta usaidizi.
Residents believe the fire was started by an individual on a revenge mission after a man was killed in the area on suspicion of being a thief. This is the 3rd case of alleged arson in this area in recent weeks. Yet Boxing Day finds the residents of Mathara's Section C rebuilding, despite fears that they may have to undertake this exercise again and again. Wilkista Nyabwa, KTN Prime.
So with Christmas over, Boxing Day has become the day that most people used to nurse hangovers from the previous night's revels. Catherine Amwantha reports on the Christmas aftermath.
Wednesday morning, the morning after Christmas. And some Kenyans were still reeling from the aftermath of an evening tipple. This man was perhaps trying to find his way home, or maybe not. Even though Boxing Day is a public holiday, others were already back at work, trying to make a living despite last night's merrymaking.
Liko smart sana. Tumerukaruka sana hapo. Tumeenda Karege, kametubamba, hata tumeamka bado tukiwa maji tuku sana.
Ilishika tu kiasi na wenye walikuwa lakini hakukukosa wenye walikuwa nazo. Ndio hasa walituburudisha.
Judging by what was said by the majority of those KTN spoke to, politics and the upcoming elections is the talk of the town.
Na sisi tafadhali juu politics zetu si za kabila fulani ama kabila fulani ama jamii fulani. Politics zetu ni za Wakenya washikane.
Others were thinking about how to get through January now that the holiday season was slowly coming to an end.
Tuna survive the hard way. Unaona, si tuna survive the hard way. Si lazima tukule kama wao matajiri vile wanakula. Sisi tunaomba tu Mwenyezi Mungu, tuko hai, maisha inaendelea. Sasa hatufikiri mambo ya krisi, sasa tunafikiria mambo ya school fees.
At Uhuru Park, the grass was littered with rubbish from yesterday's activities. The Though most Kenyans opted to stay indoors, there was the occasional Nairobi resident who chose to visit the park.
Jana kulikuwa na watu wengi sana na leo inakaa kutakuwa na watu wengi. Hata mimi nipate hiyo fursa ya kusherehekea vyema bila watu wengi vile.
Tomorrow, most businesses will reopen and normalcy will return, at least for the next few days, before another round of merrymaking to usher in the new year. Catherine Omwando, KTN.
I love this next story that is still on the Christmas blues, and in various households around the country, most men are nursing their hangovers and the other consequences of overindulgence. However, majority of the women didn't quite enjoy themselves, and instead of nursing a hangover, they're busy cleaning and clearing the Christmas mess. Carol Nderi tells us why we need to change our ways and ensure that they too can enjoy Christmas.
Christmas celebrations in Nyeri town were still in top gear today. At the Green Hills Hotel in Nyeri, guests were treated to free aerobic lessons and entertainment by this group. Fun and health all in one package. But further away in the rural areas in the heart of Nyeri County, things were a little different. Scenes of women bent over cooking pots over hearths, with others scrubbing away at pots, pans and dishes used during the celebrations, welcomed us to the villages we visited. And with all the work they had to do during the festivities, did the women enjoy Christmas?
Hatukuenjoy juu umeshoka. Unajua umepika chapo, wedi umeshita kwa jiko, hiyo harufu yote iko kwa tupo hata ufurahi.
In Kanjora area, though the women admitted that the girl child since birth, and especially as dictated by African traditions, has known that her place is in the kitchen during such festivities and celebrations, it would not hurt if they got a little help from the men whom they complained just sit around and wait for the prepared delicacies without lending a hand.
Wanakaa tu pale haoni kama mama wanashoka, unasikia mtu anaamurisha tuletee chai, mtu akiingia wanaume ni kuamuru tu, hakuna kitu kingine. Hawezi akakusaidia kitu, kushota maji kama hawezi.
Wanaweza hata kupika, wanaweza kupika. Kwa sababu akiingia kwa jiko unamuonesha utafanya hivi na hivi na anaweza kupika.
Chore after chore, cleaning, scrubbing, cooking leaves little room for enjoyment for the women, especially in their rural setting. But they are proud of their place in the society, for they say that without a woman around, things would just fall apart.
Ukiona family kama haina mama, unaona hiyo family at least iko na kitu inahitajika kuwa naye. Kwa hivyo mama anafanya kazi ya muhimu sana kwa familia.
Perhaps African tradition dictates that a woman's place is in the kitchen, but during festivities this leaves her a little burnt out, and they're asking the men, is it too much to ask for a helping hand? Carol Nderi for KTN in Kanjora, Nyeri County.
Welcome back. Let's now look at the intrigues of politics. UDF presidential aspirant Musalia Mudavadi and New Ford Kenya's Eugene Wamalwa have mulled a unity pact. The two Luhya leaders, after failed attempts to crystallize alliances, now say they will rally the Luhya nation behind them. The two seem to have realized that they stand no chance whatsoever with the divided Western Kenya vote and must forge an alliance if the region is to produce the fourth president of the country, or better still, propel the region's presidential candidate to the second runoff. Samogina reports.
The Deputy Prime Minister is on the offensive to craft another unity pact barely a week after being dropped from the Jubilee Alliance. Mudavadi shared a platform with Justice Minister Eugene Wamalwa at his Vihiga backyard during the Maragoli Annual Cultural Festival, where the two leaders mooted the idea of joining forces.
Sisi leo tumesema tumekuja hapa Mbale kusimama na ndugu yangu Musalia, tuite Mungu wote pamoja. Na vile tutakuja pamoja wote hivi, tuambie visi kuja sasa ujule tuone. Mimi nataka niwaambie take it seriously. Na mimi nimefurahi Eugene amekuja hapa. And we have agreed kwamba yeye anasafiri Nairobi, mimi nasafiri pia. We must sit and we must resolve this matter once and for all so that we stand as one.
The two Luhya leaders are now strategizing on formalizing a unity deal of convenience to rally the Luhya nation into voting as a bloc. The deal to be finalized soon. Mudavadi claims there is a plot to frustrate his presidential push. Consequently, the two leaders rallied their supporters to unite behind them and zone out what they termed as political hyenas from eating into the Western region's vote.
Tutakuwa na milima na mabonde. There'll be times when we'll be low, there'll be times when we are up, but we must go on and finish the journey. Wale mafisi wa kisiasa ambao wamekuwa wanafikiria hapa Western utagawanya ng'ombe wengine waende huko, wengine waende kwa maji waliwe huko kwa maji, wengine wapande milimani waliwe huko milimani.
Eugene, who is in talks with the Eagle Alliance comprising of Kenya National Congress leader Peter Kenneth and Party of Action leader Raphael Tuju, say the Eagle Alliance is ready to accommodate Mudavadi aboard their vessel. These latest developments come barely days after collapse of Mudavadi talks with the Jubilee Alliance and subsequent UDF's move to seek arbitration on breach of contract from the Register of Political Parties on a deal where Uhuru relinquished the presidency in favor of Mudavadi only to recant it days later.
Na niko hapa kuambia ndugu yangu, do not cry over spilled milk ya Jubilee. Wewe kuja tushikane, tuungane, twende mbele pamoja.
And in Eldoret, the Jubilee Alliance running mate and Eldoret North MP William Ruto projected his political vessel as the redeemer the country requires. Ruto says the Jubilee Alliance will ensure food security through improved agricultural practices and improved educational standards.
Umaskini tunaweza kuondoa, ukosefu wa chakula tunaweza kuondoa, njaa tunaweza kuondoa Kenya hii kama tutashirikiana, twende pamoja, tuzalishe chakula, tuwapatie wakulima uwezo na rasilimali ili waweze kuzalisha chakula kila nyumba.
Samogina, KTN Prime.
All right. In recent years, circumcision has been cited as a preventive measure in the transmission of HIV and AIDS. However, there is a growing concern that the use of one knife in circumcision ceremonies, especially among the Maasai, could be contributing to the spread of HIV and AIDS. Some members of the community are urging Maasai elders to put an end to the use of one knife in the rites of passage.
In the heart of Transmara, tens of young boys take part in the Maasai rite of passage. In the beginning of the ceremony, they are looked at as young boys. But at the end, they are called men, or Moran, part of a generation of junior warriors. The rite of passage involving circumcision is a tradition the Maasai do not take lightly. They eat from the same cow skin and are cut from the same knife. Though the Maasai rite of passage is world-renowned, there are rising concerns over the use of one knife.
Tohara ya wasichana sasa imeenda chini, lakini hofu yetu ni kwamba wavulana katika area hii angali wako taabani, kwa sababu unakuta kwamba kule mashinani mpaka sasa hadi wanatumia bado wanatumia hicho kisu kimoja. Kwa hiyo
there have been efforts by non-governmental organizations and the government to end the use of one knife to circumcise more than one person. The efforts seem to have been in vain in some areas.
And this is still very dangerous to our boys to expose themselves to HIV and AIDS.
In Kilgoris, Maasai girls are taking a more subtle ceremony, however not any less meaningful. Since female circumcision or female genital mutilation was banned, they have found an alternative rite of passage.
Ni kuondoa kabisa, ni ishara ya kwamba kuua hiyo hali ya tohara kwa wasichana kabisa katika maeneo ya Transmara, Kilgoris, kuua hiyo hali kabisa ya kutairisha wasichana, na pia ni kuua utamaduni katika sehemu hii yetu.
These girls are advocating for the end of female genital mutilation and the use of one knife in circumcision ceremonies. Catherine Omwando, KTN.